All right, so there's music. I love it. Dun dun dun. I'm only going to hit on a couple things because at this point there's a lot of sports going on. I just talked about it on Sports Betting Weekly. That was we talked about. There's college basketball happening right now. Um, there's college basketball. There's NFL. There's CFL. There's college football. There's even I mean, there's a lot going on right now. So I'm just going to talk about where there's certain parts of the season that I'm winding down right now and gearing up for. And so I'm just going to talk about what my world looks like right now as far as sports betting. And then we're going to circle back to the NFL teams. There's NFL teams that I mapped out about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, then last week, and just where their record are and just kind of my guesstimation where they're going to finish in the playoffs and record wise and where they are now and how I'm approaching them. And that's that. So
super quick question. Sorry to butt in. Since
no,
it's
go ahead.
halftime in the Pitt North Carolina game, and we did cash the first half ticket. Are you looking at any action? I actually don't see any numbers for second half action being listed. But
so that second one, the 17.5, I did that because it was very apparent that it wasn't. We just weren't going to win the 3.5. Pitt is dominating, so I don't know that I want to go back into that game. My gut says over because Pitt still needs points. They have a shot at winning the ACC, kind of, but they need points and style points if they're going to find their way into a New Year's Six. Like the ACC is going to be completely left out of New Year's Six, so Pitt is going to keep pouring it on, and that means that UNC is going to have more chances. So the number I'm going to look at right when it pops back up is just the game total over, and I believe it was originally 71. And
I think you're right on that. Yeah.
So at 23,
67 might have been the original number.
It was 72.
It was at 72. So we're what 23-14 right now? Is that our number? 23 to 17. Is that where we're at? 23-17 right now?
23-7.
23-7.
So we're at 30. So that game total might have gone down. And if it did, anything under that, because I still think that game total's within reach. So that's where I'm looking. I at this point, Pitt's D looks good, which is scary. Their D doesn't normally look good like this.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Their O's. The O is just being the normal Pitt O. So
yeah.
So you're looking at the game under. Is that?
No, I'm looking at the game over. I'm looking at the game over
because go down.
Yes, I'm expecting it to go down from where we started because we're not even halfway there and it's halftime. Mm-hmm. So if Pitt keeps scoring as quick as they are, then NC is going to get the ball more. So, and I think NC gets the ball at half.
It was down to 67.5 right before the end of the half.
Yeah, so I like that number. I like that number. It
went low as 64.5, and I tried to jump on it, but it didn't fill, so I kind of just didn't chase it. But we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, this first possession, typically the first play of the first possession, if it's negative or no yards, we'll catch a couple more points there, and then I'm a buyer. I'd love to buy at 65.
And confirm UNC does receive the second half.
Yeah, so let them get sacked on the very first play. Let the over drop to 64, and then let's jump on it because Pitt is going to hang 50.
All right, love it.
So, all right, so I'm gonna go back to bankroll and kind of what's going on in my world and how I'm managing all this. So at this point, the picks that I put up for college, that's it. I got nothing else for this week. Those are my picks. That's what I'm playing. And the NFL, I'm probably going to be 6 games this week, and it's because there's so much action during the week. I'm not putting up basketball or NHL picks right now because I think it would be reckless for me to throw picks at you guys that I'm not super confident in, and I'm playing my action right now, and I realize that I'm more of a freak than your average human, but My Monday through Thursday, and when I say it's different units, it's a totally different account that I'm playing from. So that account stays. I cash out from that account. It goes to the same crypto account, but I cash out from that account. So tomorrow morning I will have a cash out from that account. Then I go back to the main account, which is college football, which will be tomorrow night. Cincinnati play along with the Saturday plays. I think that's 5 games on the table, and really, I'm looking to go 3-2. 4-1 is fantastic, but 3-2, I'm perfectly happy, especially with the dollar amounts of what the unit has become. And then we go into Sunday, and it's similar units. Sundays at this point are a little bit bigger than Saturdays, but either way, we're cashing out before we go into it. And in about 2 weeks, college football is for the most part over. We get down to one game, and it's on a progressive schedule. And for the most, and I'll break it down right before bowl season starts, right after we get into that championship Saturday and they announce the playoffs. But typically the way the college bowl run goes is we bet the first game, we cash, and then we press it by 25%. We cash, we press it by 25%. Every single game is either a 25 or a 50% press. The kicker is you cannot lose 2 games in a row. You can lose one, and you have to go 2 in a row. I mean, you have to have 2 wins in a row, and you cannot lose 2 in a row. If you go 2 in a row, you could lose one, and then it's between 25 and 50% press. And for the most part, you start. You call it $100. You start with $100, and you typically end up with somewhere around between $1,500 and $2,200 when it's all over. And that's how I do the college bowls. I just make a big run and just keep pressing, because at this point it's a YOLO type deal, because I've already cashed out. My unit size right now is 47x of what it was when we started back in August. And I don't know what everybody else's unit size is, but at this point in the season, the numbers should look scary to you on paper. If you started off and you were a $10 better, you should be betting right around. You should be laying probably at least $100 to $150 a game, and have cashed out at least 5x. So that's where I'm at right now. So different account Monday through Thursday, because they're totally different. They're different units, and I can't play different units out of the same account. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm kind of growing one account through college basketball and NHL and doing the responsible thing. College football is about to get completely turned off, shy of 1 game a day, which that's not really anything with bowls. And I don't bet every single bowl game. Some of the bowls are total garbage, and you walk away from them. Bama in a bowl game that's not playoffs, I'm not touching that game unless it's against somebody that I think is going to beat them. But there's certainty, like if Georgia somehow fell and didn't end up in the playoffs, I wouldn't touch them in a bowl game, because it's gonna be a crazy spread that they're not going to cover. They're not going to be motivated to show up, and I don't even think Ohio State would show up in a bowl game and care about it. So I don't bet every single bowl game. So we might be down to 4 college bets a week, maybe 5 when it comes to bowl season. So that's where I go with that. NFL is real, and CFL is extremely real. And CFL has been percentage-wise the most profitable one. And CFL at this point, with the playoffs around the corner and all but one spot completely determined, I'm probably not touching week 16, which is next week of the CFL, because we roll right into the playoffs. And playoffs I handle totally different, NFL and CFL, and we could talk about it closer to when that comes. But I know I'm kind of all over the place, but that's where the season has become, and this is the most hectic part. And after we eat our Thanksgiving turkey, it'll calm down a little bit more, and we'll have a more clear picture into the hockey and the basketball. You guys got anything on all that? All right. And then we'll talk NFL teams. So I'll just go back to the ones from last week. So last week we talked about teams, and I always like to do this halfway through the season, approaching that, and look at what the team's records are. The big ones and the little ones. And, typically, and we're now 17-game season, but when we're in a 16-game season, 13-3 is pretty damn good. 14-2, there's typically one team. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 13-3s, but you just kind of add one to either side for this season. And so what we were looking at last week, we'll talk Indy real quick. Indy was 3-5, and I said last week, 2 weeks ago, I look at Indy as a playoff team. Indy is very good. They've shown up in big games and played well, and they're 10.5 point favorite this weekend. They were a 10.5 point favorite a week ago when they played on Thursday night. Like, Indy is a good football team, and they're 4-5 right now. They were 3-5 last week. So in order for them to make the playoffs, they're going to be 11-6 or 10-7. Well,
to get back, over-unders at 61.
Yeah.
61.
Yeah. Hang on one second. I need to. Yes. I'm saying yes. I'm taking 61. Hang on one second. Okay. So thank you for that. I would have missed it if you didn't bring that up. So Indy now is. Say that again.
Oh, just said no problem. Sorry. Go on.
So Indy right now is 4-5. Last week when I was talking about them, they were 3-5. So at that point, in order for them to get to what I feel would be the necessary playoff record for them, they would have to go 11-6 for the season or 10-7, which means they would have to close out the season from last week on 7-2 or 8-1. Well, they won last week, so now 4-5, which means they're going to go. They're probably going to go 7-2, or they're going to go 6-1 for the rest of the season, right? 7-2 or 6-3. Sorry. So Indy's a win. So this is an odd thing for me to say, but there's another team to offset it. So my play for the remainder of the season is Indy money line. No points, Indy money line. Every single game that they play, I'm taking the money line on them, because in order to prove the thesis correct and them to make the playoffs, they're going to win another 6 or 7 games, and there's 9 to go. So I'll take it. They're low payouts, but I'm going to win more than half of them. Now, on the other side of it, you look at the Rams and you look at Zona. So last week on the same scenario, the Rams were 7-1. They won another game, but I said, in order for, where they're going to finish, probably 13-4 is a great place for them. They're going to clinch a playoff spot early. They'll probably be duking it out with the Rams for their division, but they're going to clinch a playoff spot, and they're just going to lose some games. So that would have meant they're going to go 6-3, Zona. They won again last week. So that makes them 8-1. So now that means in order for them to go 13-4, that means that they're going to go, 5-3? Hang on, am I doing math correctly? So I'm saying Zona is going to lose another 4 games, 3 to 4 games. I'm betting money line against Arizona every single game. I know that sounds crazy, but if you look at what the money line payoff is this weekend, for Carolina going into Arizona and winning the game outright, it's plus 360. So it pays like 3.5 wins. So if I lose one of these Indies and I win one of these Zonas, so with 9 games to go, and if I hit this Arizona opponent money line, it's going to be plus money every single week, no matter what takes place. Even if they lose and come back the following, Arizona is going to be a favorite over whoever they play. But this particular weekend, they're plus 360. So if they fall to Carolina this weekend on a full unit play, that's 3.5 wins. So I now have 8 more games of. I'm sorry, if they fall this weekend, there's 7 more of them, and I only need to win one of them for that scenario to be profitable. And I still think we're going to win 2 more after this weekend. So I think, so you win 3 of them, they all pay plus 300 or better. That's like winning 9 bets, but I've only laid 7 bets. And so then when you go to the Indy side of things, it really it's just a little bit of juice. It's just a little bit of percentage increase. Indy is minus 200, so your 100 returns only $50. But I'll still take that if you go back to stocks and you go back to that laying 100 and turning that 100 into 150 3 hours later. We live for that kind of stuff on the opening bell. So taking Indy money line and taking against Zona money line, I'm playing those to close out the year on every single game. And if I'm wrong and it burns me, then I'll stand by it. But I mean, I'm happy with my thoughts and where that has gone, and so I'm trusting it. And these are full units. I'm not sprinkling. I'm not dabbling. I mean, full unit Indy money line, full unit Carolina this weekend money line. I'm not throwing that into the circa. I'm not laying points or doing anything like that. That's just a side deal that I'm doing. It has nothing to do with baseline plays. I'm still going to put out the baseline plays with spreads, and that's where I'm going. Dallas is another one to look at. Dallas was 6-1 last week. Similar thought process. The Kansas City Chiefs, that's another one. I live in Kansas City, so I when I look at this team, I have to fight the urge to be a fan and really take my heart out of it. But when I look at the Chiefs, last week they were 4-4, and I said I still think they're a playoff team. The Raiders are they're gonna start raidering. They're not gonna make the playoffs. They were first place in the division last week. Raiders are not making the playoffs. Chargers are the real problem. But the Chiefs, they were 4-4 last week. Well, in order for them to go to the playoffs, they need to be 10-7 or 9-8. I think 9-8 might get them into the playoffs, and they just caught some luck by playing Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. They just saw Dallas on TV with some vulnerability. Now they get to go to a broken Raiders team on Sunday night. The Chiefs are going to make the playoffs. That means that from last week on, they would have to go 6-3 or 5-4. They won a game, so that means that they're going to go 5-3 or 4-4. So again, the Chiefs, they don't cover spreads, but I'm gonna play Chiefs money line every single week. I'm putting money on the Chiefs money line, and I'm just adding that to what I'm planning for, because again, I think, and I had them for some money line last week. The Chiefs to win 6 out of 3. I'm perfectly happy with returning $40 on my 100, knowing that I'm better off than laying the 6.5. We've learned that the Chiefs win games; they just don't cover spreads. So. That's another one I've looked at, and that's how I'm breaking down the closeout of this season. And who's rising? The Chargers, they're another one. They were 4-3 last week. How do we see that team? Are they gonna win the division? Because they're fighting with the Chiefs over it. In order to win the division, they got to go 7-3, 8-3. So that might be another one. So a totally different thought process than what we've all done before. We look at spreads and we look at returning 90 on our 100, and but I'm just looking for guaranteed slam dunk wins, because at this point it's been such a profitable season. I'm just trying to make some smart money before we get into playoffs and higher risk stuff, because the playoffs is completely high risk when you take the kind of units that it's built up to and you reduce that down to 4 games. That's big if you go 1-3 in the playoffs. So I'm just trying to gain some more percentages and add 2, 3, 5% to the weekend. And that's my earful. I need a drink. What do you guys got for me?
In unrelated news, I'm confirmed for the Ravens Stadium for my retirement, so that's going to be awesome.
That is very cool. Congratulations, brother.
I wish I could fly you out to do the catering, but I have to use their food.
I'd be happy to fly out and do the catering. It is what it is. I'm sure their food is good. These stadiums, they've come a long way with the food.
Yeah, they gave me a 19-page menu. And said here. Pick.
That is. Whoa. And I bet you said make sure that the Dippin' Dots are included.
Yeah, it's going to be expensive. I know that, but it'll be a good
Yeah.
time.
Is it Levy Food Service? Do they have that stadium?
Aramark.
Yeah, Aramark does a nice job. They do a really nice job. They have Kauffman Stadium here.
Yeah,
So
there's all these weird stipulations, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. Like for every 75 people, there has to be so many people walking around, and if you want this, then you have to have that. There's a like 20% charge on all things, and then there's like a minimum fee for this, and I'm like, just tell me how much it's gonna
yeah,
be. I know you're screwing me
yeah,
somehow.
yeah. You'd be really surprised though. I deal with that scenario all the time, and people think that the stadiums they're going to overcharge you because they got you locked in, and they can, and why not gouge you? And it's the things that average customers don't understand is like in an amusement park or in a stadium, there's a whole team of people that don't generate revenue. So in a stadium, you got your tickets to get into the game, you got your merchandise, and you got your food. That's all that you're making money off of.
Mhm.
And that stuff pays the people that run those divisions. It doesn't. So what you don't realize is there's a team of electricians, there's a team of plumbers, there's a team of people that sweep floors, and they don't generate revenue. They just have to keep the facility looking nice. So the money has to be made to pay those positions. And so for years I've had this conversation with people. I don't want to be charging you $17 for chicken tenders and fries, but I got landscapers to pay, I got marketing team to pay. Like there's just a whole slew of people and functions that don't generate revenue to pay for themselves.
But I might buy 2 or 3 times more chicken tenders if you charge me not quite $17.
Well, Arrowhead, I was just at Arrowhead last week, and they're charging $21 for tenders and fries. I almost fell out of my chair when my seat neighbor of
That's
7
insane.
years came walking back to his seat, and he had 3 chicken tenders. And he goes, "You want one?" And I looked at him and said, "Are you crazy? I don't know how many hours you had to work for that chicken tender, but I ain't taking it from you."
Days.
Right? Yep. What else has everybody got? Colin, I saw you pulled the mute off. What do you got to what I was just talking about? Elliot, you got anything?
I had something, and Jingle made his announcement. Give me a second. I'll remember in a second.
Yep.
Yeah, what you think on the Bucks for the rest of the season? What do you think? How many you think they're getting?
You talking Tampa? Or you talking Ohio State?
I don't give a fuck about your Ohio State boss. Nothing personal. Bucks.
Well, I mean, you say Bucks, that's where my brain goes first.
You're a diehard fan. I love it.
Well, so I do like Washington this week getting the 9.5. I mean that's for sure. That's just a lot of points for a good defense. And you remember at this time last year, like this is an odd time. This is like when things switch. Like in about 2 weeks, it switches to defense and Derrick Henry, and he's out for the season. But Tampa's lost 2, and I don't know that they're going to lose any more than 2. But when you look at their schedule, like they play Buffalo at home, they got to go to Carolina. Like they could lose a stupid one, and because if they win the next 4 games, they're going to clinch. They're going to clinch a spot early. So do they really need to show up and care against the last 3 games of the season, which is Panthers, Jets, Panthers? So it's just a matter of how quickly they clinch that division and when they get to stop caring. But I don't see them losing. I think this weekend is the best chance for them to lose. This is their second game on the road, and they just lost a game. They're going on the road again. They're not going to lose against the Giants. They're going to probably reset before they go to the Colts, to the Falcons. But I mean, they got 2-game road stretches, 3 times in the next 2 months. So I mean, they probably drop 2, maybe 3.
I was thinking they would drop 3 and they'd all be on the road.
That makes sense.
because they're blowing people. I mean, they're putting up 40+ points almost. I think at home. You can almost stake money on that. They cover and they cover the over and they cover the spread at home. But you put them on the road, man. I don't know, bro.
Yeah, I mean I like your thought there. I mean the Saints on the road. I mean that was just there's no excuse for what just happened at the Saints. Although the Saints have a good defense, so Washington's defense statistically isn't what it was last year. But if you look at the teams that have beat them this year, it's teams that are playing some really good defense and putting pressure on Brady. So Chase Young, and that's who they got to face this weekend. And the Colts is another one. The Colts can put pressure on the quarterback. They can rush the ball. That could be a scary one for them. And the Panthers. The Panthers they play a weird, unpredictable style of football. So who knows what to expect out of them? But 2 or 3 is what I see with the Bucs losing. It just depends on how quickly they clinch a really shitty division and when they get to stop caring.
Yeah, and then you add Cam in the mix too when they go see. By the time they go see him, it should be an interesting one.
I think that's incredibly
in time.
Well, Cam is on their team right now. They're not playing. They're playing the day after Christmas against Tampa. But Cam Newton paired up.
About that game.
Well, I don't think this weekend. I would highly doubt he's on the field this weekend.
He's not playing this weekend.
But Cam with that coaching staff with Joe Brady as an O coordinator, like I talked about this on a recording last year. It was like 3 weeks in. Look at how bad LSU has been since they lost those 2 coordinators that won the Natty for them. Dave Aranda is coaching Baylor with a real good chance to upset Oklahoma this weekend. And I mean, he is just a defensive guru. They lost him. They lost Joe Brady to the Carolina Panthers. And, LSU ended up losing their head coach because they're so bad. And so, Joe Brady is a offensive guru, and now he gets Cam Newton. I like what's going to happen with Carolina. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they'll be fun to watch. I don't know that you want to bet on them to close out the season. So that's Tampa.
Remember my questions.
You do or
2
don't?
Games. I do 2 games. College.
Do it.
So first one, it's a old rivalry game. Not officially rivalry game anymore with the newly fingered SEC, but Arkansas at LSU, 6:30. LSU's a 2.5 point favorite. I'm just curious. Thoughts?
And I think that's a hard one because I like Arkansas in the game, but it's 6:30 at night and it's at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And
it puts me off too. Don't get me wrong, and I'm a diehard Hogs fan, so that puts me off.
I like Arkansas now more than I did when they were ranked. Like when they were ranked, they had to walk that 3-week gauntlet with it was Texas, then it was A&M. I mean they walked at Georgia.
Yeah, we're number 25. We snuck back in.
Yeah, I don't know. There's very few teams because LSU is not a team that hates their coach. These players love the coach. He's just not recruiting well. And that was part of this rant I went on last year when I was driving to Ohio last year. I was talking about LSU, and there was a very short window to bet against them coming off the Natty. They were favored by 20, favored by 27, and we bet against them every week for 4 weeks, and we just nailed it every single time. And but this is not a team that hates their coach. He's not a good recruiter, and he doesn't have the best offensive coordinator in college football anymore. And so he's not pulling those recruits in, but these players still care about the guy. LSU 2.5 point favorite. I like that almost means that the odds makers are favoring Arkansas because the standard home is 3.
Well, and here's my thoughts behind it, because think about this. I think we still have them at play after this game, and we're not going to win that game. and Pittman has emphasized, and this has been a huge issue and emphasis at Arkansas, is you don't just need to win games in the non-conference, but we gotta freaking win the SEC games. And realistically, what are the remaining SEC games you can win?
Mhm.
At LSU, yeah, that's tough, but it's doable, especially this year. And then you got Missouri to close the regular season out.
That's no
I
walk in. Mizzou is no
it's
walk in the
not. It's
park.
not. It's not. I'm not saying it's walking in the park, but compared to Bama, it's a game that you have a chance. That's what I'm getting at. And
Yeah,
I can't remember
I
where it is this year, but that's why I think there's extra emphasis, and it's the battle of the
I
boot.
yeah
So, but
I
rivalry.
Ark.
The other one was A&M and Ole Miss. I'm
Yeah,
almost more interested in that because it's at Ole Miss and they're 2.5-point dog. You
yeah.
don't see that
So
too often.
yeah, so I like that game. So I mean, the Arkansas LSU game, I think Arkansas is the better team, and getting points is the smart move if you can get past the fact that it's Death Valley, because Arkansas is clearly the best. I mean, they are by far the better team. They're better on defense. They're better at quarterback. They're just better top to bottom. I just the at
Maybe
just
hope for a early LSU score and
yeah.
grab them on the discount or something like that.
Yeah. Now A&M Ole Miss, that's an interesting one because these A&M games the last few weeks, even when they play Missouri, I mean, most of these A&M games, other than Bama, they're not very high scoring games, and they're not allowing a lot of points out of the opposition. But Ole Miss scores on everybody. Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to stop Ole Miss from scoring. The United States Marine Corps could not stop Ole Miss from scoring. So I and at the same time, Ole Miss's defense is terrible. So rather than fart around trying to pick a winner, I think you go over 57 and call it good.
I like that. That's good.
It
I like that.
Then you get full participation trophies for everybody. Everybody can
Yeah.
score. Everybody
Yeah.
can contribute. I mean, that's 30,
You just
30
root
to
for points. Yeah.
30 to 28. 30 to 28. I mean, that's A&M still has a really good running back.
That's a lower over under than the Arkansas LSU game. That's crazy.
It's that over under is there because they're saying that
The A&M team.
that yes, they're betting on the A&M defense. That's the odds makers are favoring A&M's defense and not giving Ole Miss enough credit. And I mean, just look at Ole Miss. I mean, look at all their games.
I'd agree, but this is in the I'm
Ole
gonna
Miss
take that.
Ole Miss lost twice. All right, both of their losses, they scored 20 and 21 points. Those are in their losses. So if let's just go point spread. So if A&M is going to beat them by the point spread, or just flat out beat them, they at least have to put 22 up. If they want to cover the spread, they got to go 24. So 24 and 20, that's 44. They're almost there.
Yeah, for sure.
So and it was Auburn and Bama that beat Ole Miss. A&M is not Auburn and it's not Bama, and I don't think A&M is going to be fired up for this game against Ole Miss. Although A&M, they got to win. A&M needs to win. Because
to have a chance at the West.
To have a chance at the West, and I'm saying it.
To win, right?
I'm saying it now. I will continue to say it. I am taking the points, and I'm taking money line. I'm taking Auburn in that Iron Bowl. I will continue to say it, and I'm going to do it. I'm taking the points, however many they lay out. It'll probably be a 23-point dog, and I'm taking Auburn on December 4th, and I'm also taking them for a full unit on the money line. Auburn is beating Bama.
I agree with you on that. Okay, so A&M is 4-2. Ole Miss is 3-2 in the conference. So okay, so it is all A&M. They have to win this game. So
they have to win this game.
Oh man, missed the touchdown.
They have this game could essentially be for if Bama loses to, the only place it could go to is to Auburn or A&M. So Ole Miss winning, then Auburn winning. We could see Auburn in an SEC championship game.
Yeah.
But it's just the rankings right now in the top 4 are way too cut and clear.
I mean, Bama has 2 games left in conference. It's the 11-20 Arkansas at home and the 27th in the Iron Bowl at Auburn. So if A&M wins out and Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, A&M has the tiebreaker over Bama, and they go to the title game to lose to Georgia.
Yeah, I heard Cowherd talking about it yesterday, and if you really want to make college football better, you take away the divisions within the conference.
Totally agree.
You take away the divisions, and then I'm telling you, the out of conference loss, like I kind of agree. Like Ohio State, and I'm just using them for an example, just because of what happened earlier in the year with Oregon. They played Oregon early in the season. They had the balls, Oregon as well. They had the balls to book a team on the schedule that they knew was going to be highly ranked when they played them, or at least ranked. Those programs always
Oregon's been doing it for years, going back to the Chad Kelly days, right? Is that the right name? Chad Kelly?
Chip Kelly. And yeah, Oregon had a Michigan State game a couple years ago. USC played Bama a few years ago on opening weekend, week 0. But
World, right, or something in a neutral site.
Yeah, so they shouldn't be punished within the conference if they lose that game. But at the same time, but if you go 6-5, if you go 6-5, but you're 5-1 in your conference, you should not be winning anything.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's which makes it tough. It's almost like you have to sign a waiting to like conference versus non-conference.
Yeah,
it's like a conference is worth 11, a non-conference is worth 0.75 or something.
Yeah.
As an example, that not suggesting that be the actual value.
Yeah, and you look at Georgia, right? Like Georgia is fantastic, and they look unbeatable, and they're all that. But if you were to take a couple teams from the East or a couple teams from the West and move them over, you got A&M, Auburn, Ole Miss, LSU, Bama, all in one. If you were to take A&M and take Auburn and throw them to the other division, then you go to the Big Ten. It's the same thing. You got Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, all in one division, and we're going to end up with the University of Wisconsin again for the 6th out of 8th time in the Big Ten championship game, because Iowa's not good enough to get there, and Northwestern, Iowa, Northwestern. Those are our choices in that other division. If you were to put Penn State and Michigan over there, leave Michigan State with Ohio State in the division, you have a totally different world. Or just eliminate divisions. The division.
Man, I agree with you 100%. Like, I mean, the same thing applies in the SEC. Like the SEC West, it is stacked and has been stacked for decades.
Yep.
And the SEC East, yeah. Like, no disrespect to Tennessee and to Florida, but except for like the years of Tebow being there and a few good years of Tennessee, like in the past couple decades, that is like, it's really just Georgia having a good year every now and again, and then other than that, like, like but like it's always like that. The West is like, there has 3 teams within the top 10 to 15, and the East is like lucky if they have 2 teams in the top 25 total.
Yeah, it's, and as an Ohio State fan too, it's just,
it's great for you guys.
Well, it is great because going clean in the division. Like, we lost to Oregon earlier in the season. Well, we get to play ranked Penn State, ranked Michigan State, ranked Michigan. Like, I love it because we get past Purdue this weekend. Well, in a 7-day period, we get to own the entire state of Michigan again. But they're both ranked. But then we go to a conference championship game that has nothing good about it. Like we're going to play number 24 ranked Wisconsin, and if we don't beat them by at least 15, then it looks like we're broken, and it's a pointless game. I would far rather be playing Michigan State or Penn State or
Again,
Michigan.
Yeah, I'm with
Again,
you.
The Big 12, it took them a long time to get up to everybody else's level on even having a conference championship game, but they got it right. The top 2 teams play, and if it's a rematch, then who cares? And at this point, it may be a bedlam game 2 weeks in a row with choke State.
And maybe it could also be. I mean, maybe not the exact best example because the Natty was a freaking bore of a game. It was a 13-0 Alabama LSU, but when it was that game and LSU didn't even get past half midfield until the fourth quarter. But in the first game, it was a great like and I think LSU won by 1 point or whatever, something like that. And it was like you ended up at the end of the season with a rematch, and it was okay. Yeah, it was a letdown for everyone, but it was still there was the potential there, and at the same time, it was also the best 2 teams, even though they're from the same conference and the same division. If it's the best 2 conference, if they're the best 2 teams, let it happen. If it's Ohio State and Michigan, the team up north. Sorry, my bad.
You're good.
So be it. Like I'm with you. Like the whole division thing, it almost seems it's more detrimental than it should be.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, you're right. I think the Big 12 is on to.
Yep. So, all right. Well, I'm going to jump off unless anybody's got anything else sports betting related. You guys know what I'm doing to close out the season. I would recommend everybody doing that too. And, we'll talk again next week. So, and I'm sure I'll talk to you before then.
Sounds good. Let's get some offense in this game.
Yeah, we need it. Talk to you later, guys.
Oh, bye.
Yeah.